friend. Well, by the numbers, your best friend should know this, and know this about you. Your best friend should know how to do this. Team, when we hear by the numbers, or as the data shows, there's a large part of us that checks out. Why? Because it's just not as grabbing. If I were to tell you all the statistics of how to choose a best friend, or all the statistics of what makes a good leader, give you a checklist, well, you could probably start looking into, all right, I can see these different numbers. I've seen these statistics before. But if I were to tell you, 6 years ago, I was working for an organization and my dad became very ill. And without even saying a word on what I needed to do to go visit my dad in the hospital, my leader, my manager, had already cleared everything within my workload, had already emailed all of the other teams saying Todd is untouchable for the next 2 weeks. And now, team, as I tell you the story, now we start to feel something a little bit more. Here on this webinar, we are going to be learning what we can do to bring our data, to get our ideas to come to life. And I want to give a shout out to a quote from one of our other instructors at iSpeak, Kevin Karshnick. He says, "We are here to bring your life to life." Whatever that is. If it's your job, if it's an interest, if it's a goal, we're going to bring that life to life. Now, I can see that we're waiting for Adobe to load a little bit. My microphone may be cutting in and out a little bit. And hey, if you don't see the slides, don't worry too much just yet. They are going to pop up, populate. I think one of the greatest things about what we are all here for is not all presentations are PowerPoint. In fact, presentation is not PowerPoint. Just like being able to tell a good corporate story does not always call for having slides with us. So, if anything, not having slides is going to test my counterpart and I, Bill Krieger, on making sure that you guys take away some valuable storytelling tips and tricks and templates along the way. But it'll show you just not everything needs a slide deck. As you guys continue to have any other trouble with the Adobe platform, please continue to put it into that chat panel. Go ahead and respond in there. Keep us up to date with what's going on. Bill and myself are going to be co-hosting and sharing and helping all of you out and taking you along this journey. So while one of us is talking, the other one will be in the chat panel trying to help troubleshoot and get you guys going there. So please keep us up to date in that chat panel. Feel free, let us know how it's going. Team, I will also let you know this is being recorded and we will be sending out the link to watch this webinar tomorrow. It takes some time to render it and then to upload it. And so tomorrow you'll see an email from our amazing operations manager, Tracy, who will be sending that link to you guys to watch later on. We have found Chrome and Internet Explorer, believe it or not, are the two best browsers to watch this in. There is the Adobe Connect app that should run pretty smooth as well. So try those, and like I said, just keep us up to date. Oh, no big difference, Vanessa. All right, using Chrome currently. I'm a big fan of Chrome. That's just my personal preference. Well, team, like I said, I'm Todd. My counterpart, Bill, you guys are going to see here very shortly. We're excited to take you on this journey. Now, just to let you guys know, this is a 1-hour webinar about one of our 8-hour courses, one of our workshops. And next week, we are hosting this workshop for open enrollment. Anybody from any organization can join. It's next week, Monday and Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. If you are interested, if you have questions, please shoot us an email. Let us know. Go to our website, ispeak.com/virtual, and we can get you hooked up and get into that class. All right. Fabiana, I see you're using the app now and the sound is better, still no slide. I'm happy that we got the sound to work. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn off my webcam, and maybe that'll help with some of the bandwidth to make the slides pull up a little bit better. We'll see how this goes here. All right, so iSpeak.com/virtual, we have all of these various courses that we like to offer. Awesome. Sound is better. Well, I guess that's Adobe telling me that I have a face for radio and not a face for video webinars. Team, I've gotten to be a chance to be a part of this iSpeak team for multiple years now, but I want to bring my co-host up to help us out know where are we going in this webinar. So Bill, hey, what are we doing in this webinar? And I see no PowerPoint still. That is okay. Bill's about to jump on and let us know where we're going with today's journey. Bill, you there, my friend?
Yes, yes, thank you, Todd. Yeah, group, I'm putting my face on, Todd, just so that you can see I have a face for TV, not the radio. But I am going to turn it off because of bandwidth issues. Welcome, everyone, to the group. Hey, Todd and I are going to take you on this great journey here about how to effectively tell impactful stories. So, in our journey, we're going to make 5 basic stops along the way. The first stop we're going to take is who tells stories. You might be interested to find out just who that is. Who's telling stories? Now we're also going to give you throughout this workshop, you're going to receive 6 templates on how to tell a story. We're not going to cover all 6 in our hour, so we will take a stop at a rest area on lessons learned template, and we'll do a little bit of a walk around deep dive with that particular template on how you can tell a lesson learned story. Know that there are 6 that we will share in the training in the class, but today just the one. We'll also take a stop in our journey and handle any questions that you have, any comments, concerns, any of those kinds of things. There will be a time when we'll just pause, and that's what we'll do. I don't want to limit you just to that point, though. Todd's introduced you to the chat window, and I want you to feel free at any time to jump into the chat window and like you're doing, giving us some feedback, have some questions, concerns. We'll try to handle those as best we can as we go. So question time will come, but you can do those at any time also. Now, Todd and I have been working together now for quite some time, and it's interesting, Todd, that we actually get to be together today. I mean, group, usually Todd and I are headed in different directions. And it's usually a pretty special time when we can instruct together as a team. Before the pandemic happened, in fact, Todd, remember you and I were in Orlando together, and it was right before the big scare and certainly all the changes in travel and everything. And we had the opportunity to work with a really fine organization there that does incredible work, helping them with communication skills and how to present and so forth. And in fact, Todd, you and I have traveled the world over. Todd, come in and share some of the crazy fun places you've been before we all got into the lockdown that we're in now. What's some of the cool places that you've been to?
Yeah, team, we've been super lucky that iSpeak has been in business for over 20 years now. And in that 20 years, we've been fortunate to have clients. I myself have been, all over the United States, but other places like Panama City, Panama, China, China. Now, keep in mind that was a year and a half ago, so everything is okay in the Swizzler household. Places like Taipei, Taiwan, Singapore, Penang, Malaysia, those have all been some of the really awesome places that we've gotten to teach internationally. And then we do these virtual workshops to people all over the place. I've had people in our workshops, the virtual ones, in Russia and Slovakia and Argentina, Canada. It's been really, really cool, and we've been very fortunate. And yes, it's rare when you and I do get to team up and work together. That's why what makes this webinar so special for sure.
Yeah, thank you, Todd. And group like Todd, I've had into some of those same places, also Romania, into the UAE, and have been into India, and of course all over the United States, into Mexico, into Canada. The reason why we're bringing this up is to let you know that Todd and I have had a lot of experience in coaching and in presenting, being keynote speakers. I've had the opportunity of certainly doing the one-on-ones to even standing in front of a group of 1,500 people. We are happy today to share with you in our journey here some of the ways we add inspiration and certainly storytelling delivery tips and tricks. And it's not just from us. We have interfaced with some pretty dynamic people and have learned from them also. So we're going to share all of really the good, the bad, and the ugly on how to really connect using stories. And 20 years, boy, those 20 years have gone by quickly for iSpeak, for sure. So where do we start? I think, Todd, we ought to start this whole thing by just kind of asking our group a question and have them jump into our chat window and share. And I know some of you are still struggling with some issues. We'll try to work through those. But, the question is, what makes a memorable story? So think about maybe a time at work, or maybe at home with the family or with your team. What have you seen with storytelling that just has made it memorable? Let's have you go to the chat window, share
Bill,
some of those.
what if we tell them the story? What if we tell them about the story about our waiter when we were on that last trip at that burger bar? You remember that guy? Can we share that one? That was pretty memorable.
Yeah, but we're not really here to tell stories. We're here to how to tell stories, not to tell stories. So, yeah, Todd's Monday night storytelling session we'll let that one go, Todd. But that one's pretty good for sure. All right, so I'm seeing some good stuff here. I'm seeing relatable from Claudia, very good. Pat, the delivery. Now, help me a little bit with that, Pat. What about the delivery? Maybe give us a little more detail on that. Yeah, Mike, I like this. Stories about overcoming obstacles. And Paul, humor is always good. Christine, you're hitting it for sure. The emotional connection. Yeah, connects with my experiences, Ralph. So it pulls me into the story. Yeah, and Carl, we're seeing relatable again. Fabiana, yeah, kids' dreams, challenges, overcome. Kids' dreams. Fabiana, let me share with you that today my daughter comes in and says, "Hey, Dad, I had a dream about you last night." And I went, "Oh, wow, I'm sorry. Sorry for the nightmare." She goes, "No, I dreamed that you were a rock star." I was like, okay. Yeah, sometimes the kids' dreams can be pretty crazy. Yes. Yeah, passionate, authenticity, Brent. Yeah, these are all excellent. So we all tell them, right? In fact, some of us are pretty good about it. Some of them not so much. And my wife and I have raised 5 children. We've got 3 boys and 2 girls. And when we would sit around the dinner table and try to get these kids to talk and to share what happened during their day, that was always a fun event. Most of the time they just said, "Oh, nothing." So we had to try to pull it out of them. And my oldest son, knowing that we wouldn't let him get away with it, he just came up with a scenario story that really wasn't true, pretty ambiguous. And then he told that same story every day, that's what happened to him. And his life never changed, but he got through the exercise. My youngest daughter, She would tell you every detail. Oh my goodness. She'd give you how many cracks were in the sidewalk, how many leaves were on the trees, how many clouds were in the sky. And her siblings would just roll their eyes and just like get to the point. And so they nicknamed her the blabber because she just blabbed on and on and on. So yeah, stories and what makes them good, what makes them a struggle. Yeah, yes, Todd. Yes. All right. So in this case, then let's take a look at who tells stories. Yeah. Jump in your chat window here again, group. Who tells stories? Who do you know that tells stories? You know, sometimes we get pushback on who's telling stories, especially in the business world, because we'll have people, and I know, Todd, you've gotten this too in some of your classes, where they say, you know what, we really don't tell stories. That's not my job. My job is, you know, I'm an analyst. I come up with numbers, and I'm sharing data. I don't really tell stories, just sharing data. And of course, yeah, we get that. We've got to have the data, right? We've got to have it because that's where a lot of our decision making is on. But I want to know something more about the data. And I'm with you, Grant. Everyone's telling stories. It's just sometimes we don't realize we're actually doing it. And so my question is, don't just give me the data. Tell me the story this data says. What is the data telling us? If you're just going to, I mean, if I had teams coming to me, giving me data, I would look at them and go, so what? And they ought to be able to tell me that. What is it? What is the story that is being played out by all these little pieces that you're sharing with me? So we're looking at who's telling stories. You've got them. Everyone's doing it. We know we do it as families, as parents. I tell stories to my kids. My grandkids now, of course, want the story, and they usually want to be in the story with their name. And typically that's what we think about, right? When we think about telling stories, we sometimes are thinking it's story time with Todd. It's story time, bedtime stories. And we discredit the skill set of telling a good story. And that's a shame. And we don't want to do that. We want to be able to harness this tool because it's everything that you're saying, group, in your chat window, engaging, both on an emotional level and on a logical level. In fact, when people want to know how to become a better presenter, there's a lot of skill sets that we talk about in our classes. Two that just always come certainly to the top. If you want to be a better speaker, then tell stories and use the pause effectively. That dramatic pause will bring power to the things that you're actually saying and bring emphasis to it all. So yes, we've got parents, we have friends who tell stories, and yes, group, we even have business people, which a lot of you are saying, they are telling stories also. So business, yes, and sometimes again we're not quite sure we do it. I have people in my class who will say, you know what, here's somebody, because we talk about what makes a great presentation, what makes a poor presentation, and inevitably we'll get somebody who will say, man, I just heard the greatest presentation ever. It was so impactful. And so I'll ask them, oh, great, well, what did they do? And they'll respond, I don't know. It was just so good. Yet when you step back and dissect it and look at it as a coach, you'll see that they're using stories to make their point, and it's connecting with the audience. Yeah, great speaker, 3 stories, great templates, and there's purpose behind each of the stories. You see, don't just come to the executive and share the numbers and the spreadsheet and just read them. We want to know what the numbers are really meaning. Earlier this week, group, my second son, he's a financial analyst for a refinery company. In fact, the country's largest refinery company. So if any of you are following oil prices, you kind of know the industry that he is in. And he sends me a text that basically is that oil prices per barrel have dropped to a negative $33.90. So in other words, if you want to unload this barrel of oil, it's going to cost you $33.90. It's in the hole, in the red. And he just sent me that number. It's minus 33.90. My reply back is, why? We want to know why. What are the numbers? What's the story behind it? Why has it crashed? And with that, he now tells me the story that's dropping the oil prices and the struggle of where to store it as we're pumping. There's no more storage, and there's no reason to process it into fuel because there's no storage for the fuel. And the story now just begins to unfold. There's more behind than just certainly the numbers. We want to know why. And Todd, talk to us more about the why with stories.
Yeah, I love seeing you guys there in the chat panel with everyone can tell a story. Claudia, I gave you that question and yeah, you took it. Not always. It's a skill and that's what we're on this webinar for. So Bill showing us who tells stories. We hear from some of our customers and some of the students in our workshops, "Oh, don't ever tell a story to our COO. He doesn't like stories." And we'll ask, well, does he like hearing about customer feedback? Does he like hearing what happened in that last vendor meeting? Because all of those are stories. Ralph, your point, our lives are stories. That is 100%. So now as we ask, why are stories so effective? It's to what Ralph just said. We are living a story. Our lives, our perception of the world is viewed in our stories. And what we need help doing is taking that data and making sense of it. That's why what we call the data dump, the brain dump, or when people come to a meeting and do the show up and throw up of information, it becomes very difficult to walk away with key takeaways because there was no sense made of it. And so let's take a look now, just besides the idea of making data make sense, why or how do stories help the data make sense? Whatever that data is. Team, it's because of, first and foremost, and not to simplify it too much, but it's because of how our brains work. Now, many of us have heard there's the left brain and the right brain, or the logic and the feeling brain. And yes, that is 100% true. But in reality, we have three brains. There is the logic brain. The information that we get has to make sense. So in our story, when there are all of the pieces that line up logically and make sense, we get a good feeling. Now, that good feeling could be the feeling part of the brain that will be the fuel to push us forward. And we're going to talk more about that in a moment. We also need to think about the creative side of our brain. Team, every single one of us has a creative side of our brain. It's what gives us vision and it's what makes things interesting. And when we get that interesting feeling, we want to pursue it, we want to go deeper. So these are the three brains. Now, if you stop and ask, okay, we get it, we're here to learn about stories, we want to use stories, how can I start being better at telling stories? Team, the first tip we want to give you is engage all three brains. In your stories or even in your presentation, if you're not organizing it in a story, the least we can do is engage each part of the brain so we use full mental capacity. So we really bring people along the ride for us. We're going to use those three brains as we go through the rest of this webinar. Let's take a look at that logic versus feeling. Now, this is all based on research and science that we as humans, it takes two both of these. I'm sorry, it takes two pieces of our brain. It takes both of these to make the story effective and to drive us forward. It has to make the logical sense. Our brain has to be intellectually agreed, meaning we have to see how it all lines out. But then our hearts have to be bought in. If our hearts aren't bought in, well, then we don't move forward. And something that I've always thought about is if my heart is not bought in to whatever it is that we're talking about, why am I here? So we know what makes effective stories or presentations. They have to make sense. They can't sit there and a person go, I'm confused. I don't see how these are connected. And they have to drive us to want to move forward. Now, we had mentioned that all this is based on research. There is this guru of emotional intelligence, Daniel Goleman, who has done a lot of research behind the emotional part of our brain and thinking, and then also how our brain responds to different events. And I think it's really, really interesting. In fact, I just had this conversation yesterday with my best friend in Los Angeles, California. The emotional brain will always react first. Your emotions will always react first. We were talking and catching up because we haven't talked in a long time, and we got on the subject of people walking their dogs and not picking up after their dogs when the dog does its business out and about. And I'm always a two sides of the story kind of guy. Maybe some people they see that the dog is just doing its business and this is nature and the circle of life. And I told him like I don't fully believe that. I think even if you are a person who sees a dog when you take him for a walk and it does its business and that's the circle of life and it's fertilizer, I challenge that person to accidentally step into that and see what their gut reaction is first. I bet at first they're going to go, oh man, they're not happy about it. Then the logical brain kicks in and goes, oh, well, this is the circle of life. But let's look at that emotional brain first. When we're in a business meeting, when we're talking about, right now, you are either in an industry that is doing really well with this pandemic or not so well. And when news comes across, however your leadership delivers that news, your emotions kick in way before the logic kicks in. Now that we have this understanding of we need both sides to tell an effective story, I would now argue that the feeling side can be more important when we want to move people forward or move people in a direction. Because really, if I were to ask all of you, hey, did you exercise today? Any of you make a quarantine commitment to get fit while at home? And you can give me your honest answer in the chat panel. I bet some of you, I bet some of you put exactly what is on the screen here. Now, Claudia, hey, I'm right there with you, girl. You and we are in it. I am using this time to sculpt and shape. Okay, no, I like strength training. But then there are many of us, no, I just didn't feel like it today. Netflix is just so much more attractive. But isn't it funny when my wife asked me, Todd, did you take out the trash? I go, no, I didn't feel like it. Very rarely do I respond first with, no, I did not take out the trash because the trash does not get picked up until 7:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. Therefore, I still have 7 hours before. No, I don't do all that. We go straight to the I don't feel like it first. So, team, we look at where stories come from to give us ideas. Our parents tell us stories so we can start using that to formulate our own. We use stories in a business capacity so we can help the data make sense. Now, why are stories so appealing? Because when we do it right, and in just a moment, Bill is going to take us through our first template of this webinar, our first major takeaway of this webinar. These stories work because they engage the total human being. They give us the logic to make it make sense. They give us the feeling to want to move forward, and they tap into our creativity so we can see the future of how we can apply it. Now we've got a lot of templates for you guys. I asked Bill to get into the lesson learned template because I always love hearing Bill talk about the lessons he's learned in his life, and he has a lot of great lessons for us to learn from. Bill, I know this is one of your favorite templates. Walk us through what's so good and what is the lesson learned template?
Thank you, Todd. And yeah, I'm the old guy, so a lot of lessons learned, made a lot of mistakes along the way, for sure. In fact, talk about a lesson learned. I mean, we're talking about being in this shutdown quarantine and exercise. I read where 87% of gym ownerships don't even know that their gym is closed. I think I fit into that group. Yeah, so we're looking at the corporate storytelling, and that's coming up, right? Don't we have one of those courses coming up here, Todd, fairly soon that we'll be teaching?
Yeah.
Good. So be looking at, try to get in that. In that course group, we'll go over a lot of templates. And in that, you'll also be practicing some of these templates. You're going to do a presentation that's the Who Are We template. And you'll also do one that's a lesson learned template. So yeah, we're going to show you here a little bit about the lesson learned. And our purpose is to engage our audience, just as Todd has taught us, logically. Let's tap into their feelings. Let's get those creative juices going. We'll get all three parts of the brain working and getting our audience engaged. All right, so where should I use this template? That's usually, I mean, can I just use this lesson learned storytelling? Can I use that anywhere, at any time? And there's not really any specifics. There's a lot of places that we can use and should use this particular template. And in fact, I know I've got a lot of our New Jersey lottery people online with us, and boy, I've had a chance to be there and work with you folks. Let's just, maybe you are now given the opportunity to walk into another store owner and get counter space for your lottery. And you're going to come in and introduce yourself. This would be a time they're seeing you for the first time. This is a great opportunity to use a lesson learned story template, because in this template, it creates transparency. We get to see the real you. We're finding out the authentic you. And we can do, and it tells us something about how you learn, how you develop, how you change, how you have grown, how you lead. It's not the resume, and too often we come in with all the data and we don't really learn anything about you. And we know that in this industry we need relationships between us and the store owner. And if we're going to take valuable counter space, then we've got to be able to have the relationship and the trust built, and to make that happen. And this template can certainly work there. Or if you're moving from Katy to Boston and you're going to step into a brand new team and they're seeing you for the first time, whether you're the leader of that team or whether you're a new team member, this is a great place to use this particular template. So think of it this way, group. You're applying for a job and you're going to send your resume. And now you're going to get the interview. So you've already sent in your resume that has all your data. You sit down now with that interview, or you've now Skyped in for this.
Hey team, I think we may have lost Bill there for a moment. Yeah, he bounced out there for a second. So team, Bill was giving us some examples around when can we use that template? And now I see all of you are saying lost sound. Let me know if you can hear me. This is Todd again. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Carol. That's what I was going for there. Bill showed us when can we use this template. I'm going to back up for a moment. A lot of different areas that you can use this template. Let's take a look now how we can use this template and what does it look like? All right, here we go. So the first step within this lesson learned template to be able, how do we organize it so we can give people the opportunity to learn from us and move forward? The first step to this is we have to tell them what was the struggle, what was the mistake, what was the thing that happened. Now, this doesn't always have to be bad. We're taking a look at it now as something bad that happened in the past, but I can tell you very much that this can be something good that happened to you, a decision that you made that turned out for the better. It could be a struggle that you had and you're asking people to help you move forward or how we can do this differently. And then just flat out, hey, I made this mistake and I don't want us to see it happen to all of us here. So this first starts out, and I want you guys to see this as a formula. Look at this as a 5-piece formula. A plus B plus B plus C. You see where I'm going with this. So the first one, what was it that happened? Next, bring the audience in with you. Hey, we've all experienced this particular event. All right, let me give you this one. I was working, it was my very first time working one-on-one with the CEO of a company that it's a retail organization. It was my last job, Academy Sports and Outdoors. It's a sporting goods retailer. And my very first time working with this CEO, he was coming to me, he was coming to our leadership program as a guest speaker. I told him some not so good feedback that the new management team that he was speaking to was talking about with the company. It was, there were some mistakes happening in some of the stores, and I told the CEO, I said, "Hey, how's it going?" "Oh, well, they're talking about this, this, and this." So there's the mistake I made. I put my foot in my mouth, told the CEO some things that probably shouldn't have. Just let him vent. Now, team, we've all experienced putting our feet in our mouths and saying things that we shouldn't. What I've learned and what we need to think about moving forward is how do we get a better grasp on what do we say versus what do we don't based on our audience. So there's the learned, decide, the thing that we need to change with this lesson learned. Given the struggle or mistake, the what you've learned, bring the audience in. If you don't bring them in, it becomes focused on you and people will start to check out because they have no reason to want to listen. It's not for them anymore. You're telling the story just for your own good. Now we give the lesson learned. We have to be careful with what we say to chief executives because they may take it the wrong way. Now we offer the vision. Team, right now we are in a similar position where we are facing a certain struggle, a certain challenge that we can overcome. And instead of presenting the solution, instead of presenting the problem to the CEO, we can come with a solution. So now, team, this is where I leave you. This is where you give them the purpose. I leave you to help us come up with that solution because we have an opportunity to be solution oriented rather than just complaining. So team, this lesson learned template is one template amongst a lot of other templates we will talk about in our workshops and in the rest of this webinar. Here you go. Here it is. 5 easy pieces. The decision you made, the mistake, invite them in, lesson learned, show them or invite them, ask them to see the future, and then give them purpose, give them the challenge to take us there. Now, team, I want to put this on the screen for just a moment, and I'm going to type this in the chat panel, ispeak.com/story. We have a free ebook. It is the Leader's Guide to Corporate Storytelling. This is going to have these 6 templates. You see number 6 there is the lesson learned template. Team, what I want you guys to think, yes, and it's free. Thank you. It's completely free. No payment necessary. These are different formulas for you to be able to apply your stories to give your audience something to grab on and connect to. And you can see there are different types of stories. If you come to our workshops, which I'll put this back on the screen since the slides are showing now, we have this workshop, Corporate Storytelling, coming up on the 27th and 28th, next Monday and Tuesday. I will let you know if you like Bill more than you like Todd. We'll have to wait for another workshop. If you guys are having fun with me, Todd, I'm the one teaching that workshop, so you guys can come and hang out with me. We will have you learn how to do the Who Am I template. You will practice it, you will apply it, you'll get feedback from each other, from myself, and we'll also learn some other templates within that workshop along the way. Now, team, Bill had mentioned that, oh yes, and Bill will be there, so I lied. We're the dynamic duo again next week. Thanks, Bill. This is not just the only time you guys can ask questions and comments, concerns, but I do want to bring up, is there any other questions you guys have about storytelling? Feel free if there's anything else you want to take away. We still have more content to give you here in our last 18 minutes. And Bill, I'm happy you're back, buddy, because Bill, we could use a little inspiration these days with moving us forward. But team, don't forget, in that chat panel, it's not just there for when we ask you questions, and it's not just there for when we have problems. If there's something else you want to ask or take away, please let us know. And Bill, are you with us again, my friend?
Yeah, I am. And talk about a lesson learned, group. Here was a lesson learned. I've learned that when Todd wants the microphone, he'll just boot you right out of the system and take over. All right, so yeah, it's never good to exaggerate the story. That's right. All right, so how do we inspire? And one of the thoughts that came to me is that how do I know when I'm inspired? I mean, I've had people listen to presentations go, that was inspiring. Yeah, what comes up with and what happens within me that says that it's I'm inspired? Where's the inspiration? And for me, it's all about, it starts to cut really close to my core values. What is being discussed starts to get to what drives me as to who I am and what I feel and know I should be doing, or that I care deeply about, and you're helping me see the vision of that. It becomes very, very inspiring. It reinforces what I already feel. Now, inspiration group isn't necessary every time that you're going to present or to speak, and in every story. Audience are inspired by big visions that require inspiration. So you're going to want to aim high, right? Yeah, Ralph, so inspiration with passion. And yes, when I bring passion to what I'm talking about, that's bringing that emotion and so forth that also is it becoming inspiring. It's cutting to, as maybe what Todd talked about, to the heart of the matter here. It's about the knowledge of knowing and the passion behind it. So yeah, we're tapping into these three different parts of the brain with logic, with feeling, and with vision. So I want to inspire my audience. We want to ask, well, what are you wanting them to do? You see, I don't need inspiration for simple little things I need you to accomplish. If we're going to do something big, then we want to bring inspiration. Now, Todd's way too young to remember any of this. I don't even think Todd was alive, but many of us were. Some of you are in Todd's group and don't remember any of this. Yes. Unfortunately, no. Todd's our youngster. Hey, I have been around a long time. I think I was one of the first people off the Mayflower when it landed on the big rock. All right, so if those of you that remember when we have inspirational speeches and stories, like with President Kennedy, who looked at the nation and gave us the vision of going to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. Hey, Russia can put Sputnik in the air. We're going to land on the moon. And we also have Ronald Reagan, who stands and steps up and says, Gorbachev, tear down this wall. These were big pieces that required vision, right? Vision behind them. And notice also what didn't take place. They're both bringing us vision, but they didn't tell us how to do it. They just created what could be and gave it to us. So, what do I say then to bring this vision into play and to be inspiring, right? Well, we're going to paint the vision. We're going to paint that picture of what it could be. It's really in just these three simple steps. So first, what's that? And then let's let them solve it. So let's go to the moon. Let's tear down the wall. Let's paint the vision. Don't give them step-by-step instructions. You're only going to create dependency into those you are trying to lead. Now they don't have the authority or even the desire to want to solve problems. They come to you to solve all their problems, which means then if this fails, it's you. If it succeeds, it's still you, even though they did all the work. So don't tell us how to tear down the wall. Don't tell us how to get to the moon. Let them solve it. We want them to be the heroes. You encourage and support. And yes, Todd, involvement now means buy-in. And my encouragement and support is to keep them moving forward. In the end, I'll give them all the credit. I will give them the credit. They're my champions. I'm the leader. So those three steps, paint the vision, let them solve it, and give them encouragement and support. Yeah, ownership. And you know, Ralph, that when they have buy-in or ownership, then my job as a leader, I don't have to ride, the fences to make sure everybody's doing their job. I can now focus on ways to clear the path and let them be successful. I can be in that supporting role. All right. Well,
Yeah.
Todd, show us how to deliver
Awesome.
better stories.
Yeah. And so Bill, thank you. I yes, team, I'll admit my age here. I was born in 88. I was a little bit after some of those events. But that's one of the questions that we get with, hey, do all of my stories need inspiration? And how can I inspire with my stories? And Bill just walked us through, how do you add the inspiration? How do you get others inspired? If you are a leader within an organization, if you're a leader of a team, we often need that inspiration so our teams don't feel forced to go do what we need them to do. The inspiration, these stories, this vision, it's to get them to want to go do what needs to be done or want to go do and achieve better. That's that buy-in, that's that ownership, loving what we're seeing in the chat panel here. So that's my challenge for you guys as leaders. Whether you're a leader or not, you're still a leader. How are you inspiring people to want to, not feel forced to? Now let me get to the first question. Does every little thing need inspiration? No. If you're asking them to, hey, listen, by next Tuesday, I need you to fill out your expense report. We don't need inspiration behind that. I know sometimes we need a little internal motivation, but we don't need to go into an inspirational story to fill out our expense reports. That's something that I know I always have a hard time with, but that's because I'm not a numbers guy. So, team, really great now of when you see inspiration is needed, three easy steps to add that. Now, as we get into how do we deliver better stories, we've given you templates. We know here's one template, here's six others you can go look for. We can add vision to it. Now, what are some other tips and techniques we can use to do this better? Back to Claudia's answer earlier. Claudia, can we all tell stories? No, it's a skill. So first, let's tap into that third brain. Let's tap into that creativity, that imagination. And there are some really cool phrases. And in fact, I challenge you guys or invite you in the chat panel. What are some phrases that you've heard or you use to get people's creativity sparked or to get them to now start visualizing a little bit more? I know one that is my leader, Russ Peterson Jr., who's on this call also. His favorite phrase is picture this. And he also really likes to use here's what I mean. There's two phrases right there that will tap into your audience imagination because now you're forcing their brain to see what they hear, not just take in words and try to memorize, but now their brain kicks up a notch and they're creating a deeper connection with it. So I love this picture this because immediately when I say, hey, picture this, all of you, your brain immediately gets ready to go, oh, I'm going to visualize something he's about to tell me. Picture this, you're in a boardroom and you're having to give the most important presentation of your life. All of you, when I said picture this, your mind immediately started to picture some boardroom, and now you're starting to fill in people, you're filling in somebody really important, and now maybe you're sweating a little bit. All of that comes from that imagination. Claudia, can you imagine? Team, can you imagine what it would mean for us to solve this problem versus team, what would it mean to solve this problem? They're two totally different scenarios. Can you imagine what it would be to solve this problem? I guarantee you we'd see a more positive future. Team, what would it mean to solve this problem? I guarantee people are going to start trying to put ROI and facts and figures before people, and that can be a slippery slope sometimes. Pat, close your eyes. I love that because now we're forcing them instead of letting their eyes tell their brain what they're really seeing. They're making their eyes and their brains have to do the work, which is going to take us into our next suggestion and tip. And by the way, write these down. First one, tap into the imagination. Second one, engage their senses. Anytime we can get an audience to tap into more than just the imaginary future, but we can get them to start imagining a sight, get them to imagine a smell. If you're working in say you're getting ready to open a new restaurant and you're describing to your team what you want the restaurant to smell like to become more inviting for more people to come in and buy more things, now we start to create this deeper connection with our audience. Engaging in the senses now makes a story more real versus more imaginary. And team, the last one that I'm going to throw out there for you guys is a metaphor. Using metaphors to help them move a little bit further with that mental picture. And Bill, you've got a really great metaphor that connects with a lot of different stories and the meaning behind metaphors.
Yeah, thank you, Todd. Yeah, metaphors are that figure of speech. They can provide clarity between two ideas or possibly even reveal some similarities between two concepts. It can also engage those three parts of the mind. So metaphors, I absolutely love. This will give you an example of what we're talking about here. Give them a metaphor to picture. We're using this creative part. So here's the thought. A network without a firewall is like a house with no walls. What are you picturing at this sense? I mean, there might be some pros and cons as you start to visualize this in your own mind. For example, the good news would be you never have to worry about being locked out of your house. There are no walls. The bad news is that it's not very secure or private. In fact, you might want to make sure you dress in the basement, please. So in this case, the metaphor begins to form, or as one of my colleagues here has heard me say, don't lead your audience down a dark tunnel and leave them there. Give them a way out. Yes. So yeah, metaphors can be very powerful. So again, a network without firewall is like a house with no walls. Well, what does that look like? Yeah, does it look like this? That's pretty. Is it like this? Yeah, pretty tough to lock the door. Why would you bother? And you better dress in the basement. Better hope you have a basement. Or is it this? This is really interesting, isn't it? Now, here's the struggle group, is that too often as presenters, when we do this, we rob our audience of these visuals when we give it to them. We don't have to put everything we're saying in the slide bullet point by bullet point. So let them come up with the image. Don't show them the picture. Let them create their own. We all know that the book is much better than the movie. I watched Lord of the Ring movies, loved them. Read the books and went, oh my goodness, these are so much better because I became the movie producer. Let your audience create their own metaphor pictures. Well, what's next, Todd?
Yeah, so team, 3 tips there. I typed in the chat panel for you guys just to help you if you wanted to copy and paste it or jot those down. Those are 3 things that we have seen work extremely effective, bringing your stories more to life. And what I really find is most important with our stories is that one word, connection. Are you making a connection? Oftentimes we hear in the business world that the business world doesn't need stories, right? This isn't story time with Bill. This is business. Well, the reason that people are against stories in a business setting is because it's lacking a connection. Connection to the topic, connection to the audience. So let's now start creating better connections and let's use, really, team, the best thing you can do as a presenter. Bill gave us the 2. What are the 2 best things you can do as a presenter? Well, team, I'm going to say number 1, how we tell stories to create that connection. And then the second one, was the power of the pause, which we talk a little bit more in some of our other workshops. Team, this is Dara. Dara is our amazing support. She's our senior account executive. She is the sales team at iSpeak. We just call her the one that keeps us all sane because she helps us really keep everything together when it comes to our workshops. If you're curious, if you want to go deeper into the topic of storytelling, Dara is here to help you guys out, get signed up, and get locked in. For those of you who are able to see the slide deck, there is a slide of all of the courses that we offer. Don't worry. Again, let me reiterate, we are recording this webinar, and this webinar will be available to all of you tomorrow. We're going to send this out to everybody so you can at least go back and watch the recording of this webinar. Team, what I want to say is just a very big thank you. Thank you guys for being here with us. Thank you for being along the journey with Bill and myself. Here is our contact information. Our challenge to you as you go out into that world, don't just tell a story to entertain. Tell a story to connect. Team, thank you guys very much for being here. Bill and I are going to hang out a little while longer in case you have more questions, in case you want to dig a little bit deeper. Thank you again. Go out and make it a great rest of your afternoon.
Yep, thank you, group, for being with us. Thank you, Todd.